The alien ship appeared above Earth without warning. It was small, damaged, and leaking some kind of green gas into space. Every military base on the planet immediately went on high alert. Satellites locked onto the vessel. Warships launched from hidden stations on the moon and in orbit. Commander Hyun stood in the control room of the Korean Space Defense Force, watching the screens with cold eyes. He had trained for this moment his entire career. First contact. The day humanity would meet another intelligent species. He always imagined it would be more dramatic. "Sir, they're broadcasting a signal," said Narration, the communications officer. Her hands moved quickly across her controls. It's a peace signal, universal mathematical patterns. They're not hostile. "Keep all weapons locked on them anyway," Hyun ordered. "Peace signals don't mean anything until we know what they want." Within minutes, 6 human warships surrounded the alien craft. Each ship had enough firepower to destroy a small city. The alien vessel looked tiny and fragile between them, like a butterfly caught in a spider's web. Nari worked to translate the alien message. The mathematics were simple enough, but the meaning behind them took time. Finally, she looked up at Hyun with wide eyes. "Commander, they're asking for permission to land. They say they're dying." Hyun felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Dying how?" "They don't explain. They just keep repeating the same message. Please help us. We are dying. We have nowhere else to go." The decision went up the chain of command all the way to the Unified Defense Council in Geneva. After 2 hours of debate, they agreed to let the aliens land, but not in a populated area. They chose a military base in the Nevada desert, far from any civilians. Dr. Yuna Kang arrived at the base before the alien ship landed. She was Earth's leading xenobiologist, though until today she had only studied the theory of alien life. Now she would meet it face to face. She wore a protective suit and carried scanning equipment, her heart beating fast with excitement and fear. The alien ship landed with a soft hiss. It was beautiful in a strange way, all smooth curves and patterns that seemed to shift in the light. A door opened, and 3 aliens emerged. They walked on 4 legs but stood upright on 2 when they stopped moving. Their bodies were covered in a hard shell that shimmered with colors like oil on water. Multiple eyes dotted their heads, and their mouths moved in ways that seemed impossible. One of the aliens stepped forward. Through a translation device, it spoke in broken but understandable English. "I am Ambassador Kirel of the Velthara Empire. We come in peace. We come in desperation. Please, we need your help." The humans led the aliens into a secure facility. Armed guards stood at every door. Scientists watched from behind protective glass. Hyun, Yuna, and several generals sat across a table from the 3 Velthara delegates. Kirel told them a story that made even the hardened soldiers feel uncomfortable. The Velthara Empire had existed peacefully for thousands of years across 12 star systems. They were scientists, artists, philosophers. They had no armies, no weapons, no concept of war beyond ancient history books. Then, the Ravagers came. They appeared from deep space, a species that existed only to consume and multiply. They ate everything, stripped worlds bare, killed every living thing they found. The Velthara tried to fight back, but they didn't know how. They had no warriors, no tactics, no weapons designed to kill. World after world fell. Billions died. The Velthara Empire was collapsing. "We searched our ancient archives for any species that might help us," Kirel explained, her multiple eyes glistening with what might have been tears. "We found references to your world, a small planet on the edge of the galaxy. The record said your people were primitive but persistent. We thought perhaps you might offer us sanctuary, a place to hide our civilians while the Ravagers consume our worlds." General Bin Seo leaned forward. He was an old man with scars on his face and hard eyes that had seen too much war. Tell me about these Ravagers. How do they fight? How do they move? How do they breed? Carol seemed confused by the question. I don't understand. We came seeking sanctuary, not— Answer the question, Bin said, not unkindly. How do they fight? For the next hour, the Velthara described the Ravagers in detail. They told of massive swarms that blocked out suns, of creatures that could survive in space, of a hive mind that made them impossible to outthink. They spoke of worlds stripped to bare rock in days, of civilians running with nowhere to run to. The humans listened with an intensity that made Xyrel uncomfortable. They didn't look shocked or afraid. They looked focused, interested, almost hungry. When the Velthara finished their story, silence filled the room. Kirill's translator caught fragments of whispered conversations between the humans, words like tactics and weak points and response time. Finally, Commander Hyun spoke. His voice was calm and measured. Ambassador Xyrel, I need you to understand something. You came to Earth seeking sanctuary, safety, a place to hide. Yes, Xyrel said hopefully. Will you grant it? No, Hyun said. The word hit like a hammer. We won't give you sanctuary. Xyrel's body seemed to collapse inward. Her hope died visibly. The other Velthara delegates made sounds of distress. Hyun continued, We won't give you sanctuary because you don't need it. What you need is an army. You need weapons. You need someone to stand between your people and the things hunting them. He stood up, and every human in the room stood with him. You came to the wrong planet if you wanted peace and safety. Earth is not peaceful. We are not safe. We have spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other. We have weapons you can't imagine. We have warriors who are born and bred for battle. General Bin smiled, and it was not a kind smile. We will fight your Ravagers, not for payment, not for resources, not because we're good or noble. We'll fight them because that's what humans do. We see something that's hunting the weak, and something in our blood makes us want to hurt it. Dr. Yuna added more gently, You came seeking salvation from monsters, Ambassador. You found it. But you need to understand that we are monsters too. We're just the kind that protect instead of destroy. Most of the time. Xyrel looked at the humans surrounding her. She saw their weapons, their scars, the cold calculation in their eyes. For the first time since the Ravagers appeared, she felt a spark of hope, but she also felt fear. Not of the Ravagers anymore. Fear of what she had unleashed by bringing these humans into the wider galaxy. When can you begin? She asked quietly. Hyun checked his watch. We already have. Fleet mobilization started the moment you entered our solar system. We'll be ready to deploy in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. The Velthara needed months to prepare for anything. These humans were already preparing for war. Xyrel wasn't sure if she had made the best decision or the worst one, but she was certain of one thing. The galaxy was about to learn that Earth was not primitive. It was just very, very dangerous. The Velthara delegation stayed on Earth for 2 weeks, and every day they grew more disturbed by what they saw. Ambassador Xyrel stood in the observation deck of the Geneva Unified Defense Command, watching the planet below. From space, Earth looked beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It looked peaceful, safe, perfect. Your world is so lovely, she said to Dr. Yuna, who stood beside her. Where are the scars of your wars? You speak of 10,000 years of conflict, but I see no damage. Yuna smiled, but it was a sad smile. Oh, we have scars, we just got very good at healing them. We've destroyed forests and then replanted them. We've leveled cities and rebuilt them. We've poisoned rivers and then cleaned them. We learned that if we wanted to keep fighting, we needed to preserve what we were fighting for. That's— Xyrel struggled to find words. That's terrifying. Yes, Yuna agreed. It is. Down on Earth, the mobilization continued at a pace that shocked the Velthara observers. Factories that made cars yesterday were making ammunition today. Shipyards launched 3 new warships every week. Millions of soldiers trained in deserts, jungles, and cities. Kirel attended a strategy meeting with human military leaders. General Bin stood at the front of the room, pointing at a holographic display of Ravager territory. "They move in swarms," he explained. "That means they rely on numbers, not individual skill. We can use that, split their attention, force them to divide their forces." "They breed rapidly," added Dr. Jin Park, a weapons specialist who made Kirel deeply uncomfortable. "But rapid breeding means high metabolism. They need constant food. Cut their supply lines. They starve." "They're a hive mind," said Lieutenant Quan, a Special Forces officer. "Kill the Queen, the rest panic. Simple." Kirel couldn't stay silent. "Simple? You make it sound easy. The Ravagers have consumed entire star systems. They've killed billions. How can you be so calm?" The room went quiet. The humans looked at each other, then at Kirel. Finally, General Bin spoke. "Ambassador, may I ask you a question? How many wars has the Velthara Empire fought in the last 1,000 years?" "None," Kirel said proudly. "We are a peaceful people." "How many has Earth fought?" Bin asked the room. 17 major conflicts in the last century alone," someone answered. "Hundreds of smaller ones. Thousands, if you count the ones before that." Bin turned back to Kirel. "We're calm because we've done this before, not against aliens, but against each other. We know what war looks like. We know what it costs. And we know how to win." Later that day, Kirel attended a demonstration at a weapons facility. Dr. Jin showed them something called a thermobaric missile. When it exploded in the test range, the blast wave was so powerful it made the ground shake 5 kilometers away. "This is designed to clear enclosed spaces," Jin explained cheerfully. "Perfect for Ravager hive ships. The pressure wave will rupture their internal organs even if the fire doesn't burn them." Kirel felt sick. You designed this in 2 weeks? Since we told you about the Ravagers?" "Oh, no," Jin laughed. "We've had these for 70 years. We use them against each other. I just modified them for Ravager biology." That night, Kirel couldn't sleep. She wandered the halls of the military complex until she found Nari Chai working late in the communications center. "Can I ask you something?" Kirel said. "Human to Velthara?" Nari looked up from her work and nodded. "Of course. Are you scared of what's coming?" Nari thought about it for a long moment. "Yes, I'm scared, but not of the Ravagers." "Then what?" "I'm scared of what we'll become when we fight them. Humans are good at war, Ambassador. Too good. We're good at finding reasons to hurt each other, and we're even better at finding reasons to hurt others. Every time we go to war, we lose a little piece of our humanity. We come back changed." Kirel sat down heavily. "Then why do it? Why fight if it damages you?" "Because the alternative is letting the Ravagers kill your people. And we decided a long time ago that some things are worth the cost." Nari paused. "We're monsters, Ambassador. But we're monsters who chose to protect the weak. That choice doesn't make us less monstrous. It just gives our monstrousness a purpose." The next day, Captain Tae Wan gave a demonstration of human fighter tactics. The Velthara military advisors watched as human pilots pushed their ships to impossible limits. They pulled turns that should have killed them, flew at speeds that should have torn their craft apart, and performed maneuvers that seemed designed to give their enemies heart attacks. One pilot deliberately scraped his ship against an enemy target in the simulation, using his own vessel as a weapon. "Your pilots are insane," Kirel whispered. Tae, overhearing her, grinned. "Probably. But we're effective insane. You're going to get yourselves killed." "Maybe," Tae admitted, "but we'll take a lot of Ravagers with us. And isn't that what you need? The final presentation came from Hannah Lim, an intelligence officer with cold eyes and a colder smile. She explained psychological warfare, propaganda, fear tactics, and information manipulation. "We'll hack their communications if they have any," Hannah explained. "We'll send false orders, create confusion, make them afraid. Fear is a weapon just as powerful as any missile." "The Ravagers don't feel fear," one of the Velthara advisors said. "They're a hive mind. They don't have individual emotions." "Then we'll make them learn," Hannah replied simply. That evening, General Bin called a meeting with the Velthara delegation. He laid out the human battle plan in detail. It was aggressive, brutal, and absolutely ruthless. The humans would attack in 3 waves, hitting multiple Ravager positions simultaneously to divide their forces. They would target breeding grounds, supply routes, and command structures. "You'll lose thousands of soldiers," Carell protested. "Tens of thousands, probably," Bin agreed calmly. "Maybe more, but we'll win." "How can you be so certain?" "Because we're willing to pay the price." "Are the Ravagers?" Carell looked around the room at the human faces. They weren't smiling. They weren't excited. They looked grim and determined, like people walking toward their own funerals with their heads held high. "I need to ask," Carell said quietly. "Why are you really doing this? You say it's in your nature, but that's not enough. There has to be more." Commander Hyun answered, his voice soft. "You want the truth? We're doing this because for 10,000 years, we've been the monsters in our own stories. We've killed each other over land, resources, ideas, religions. We've committed atrocities that would make your people weep, and we're tired of it." He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "When you came here asking for help, you gave us something we've never had before. A chance to be the heroes instead of the villains. A chance to use all this violence, all this skill at destruction, for something good. You're offering us redemption, Ambassador, and we're desperate enough to take it. Even if it costs you thousands of lives?" "Especially then," Hyun said. "What good is peace if we won't fight to protect it for others?" Kirill finally understood. These humans weren't just warriors. They were warriors carrying guilt, looking for absolution. They were monsters who hated what they were and desperately wanted to be something better. She had come to Earth seeking salvation from the Ravagers. She found it. But the price was unleashing a different kind of monster on the galaxy. A kind that killed not from hunger or instinct, but from choice, from duty, from a twisted sense of honor. "The fleet will be ready in 1 week," General Bin announced. "We'll deploy to your territory and engage the Ravagers immediately. No negotiations, no mercy, total war." "Total war," Carell repeated softly. The Velthara had no word for that concept in their language. They would need to invent one. As the meeting ended and the humans filed out, Carell sat alone in the empty room. She thought about her people, dying light years away. She thought about the Ravagers, unstoppable and merciless. And she thought about the humans, preparing for war with the efficiency of a species that had never known true peace. She had asked for salvation. She was getting it. But she was starting to understand that salvation had teeth, claws, and a body count. The human fleet gathered in orbit around Earth, like a storm preparing to break. 200 warships, each one bristling with weapons that made the Velthara vessels look like toys. Thousands of fighters, tens of thousands of soldiers, all preparing to travel across the galaxy to fight an enemy they had never seen. Ambassador Kirell stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Soul's Pride, watching the preparations with growing unease. Admiral Young Mack commanded the fleet, a tall man with sharp features and sharper eyes. He moved around the bridge with calm efficiency, giving orders that sent ships into formation. "We'll reach your territory in 2 weeks," Young told Kirell. "The Ravagers have taken 3 of your worlds since you left to find us. We'll hit the nearest one first." That's Velthara Prime, Karel said, her voice breaking. Our capital world, 2 billion civilians. How many are left? The question was so blunt it took Karel a moment to answer. Less than half. The rest are... She couldn't finish. Young nodded. Then we'll kill every Ravager we find there. That's a promise. The journey through space was strange for Karel. The human ships moved faster than anything the Velthara had built. But more disturbing was the activity inside the ships. The humans never stopped preparing. They drilled constantly, practiced tactics, tested weapons. Even when they slept, some were awake, always ready. Dr. Yuna found Karel in the observation deck one day. How are you holding up? I don't know, Karel admitted. Your people frighten me. They're so focused on death, on killing. We're focused on protecting your people, Yuna corrected gently. The killing is just how we do it. Is there a difference? Yuna thought about that. I hope so. Otherwise, we really are just monsters. When they arrived at Velthara Prime, the sight made even the hardened human soldiers pause. The beautiful blue and green world Karel remembered was now half gray. The Ravagers had consumed entire continents. From orbit, they could see the massive swarms moving across the surface like a disease. How many Ravagers? Admiral Young asked. Sensors show approximately 50 million on the surface, reported Narration. And there are 15 hive ships in orbit. Odds of 3 to 1, Young said calmly. Could be worse. All ships, battle formation. Fighters, launch when ready. Let's go to work. Captain Tae-Wan led the first wave of fighters. 3,000 small, fast ships screaming toward the enemy hive ships. The Velthara watched in horror as human pilots flew straight at the massive alien vessels, dodging defensive fire with impossible skill. Tae's voice came over the comm system, calm and clear. All wings, focus on the engines. Make them blind and slow. Marines will finish them. The human fighters moved like they were dancing, weaving between shots, firing missiles, then breaking away before the explosions hit. Within minutes, 3 hive ships were crippled and drifting. Drop ships away, Young ordered. Sergeant Day, your squad is up. Clear those ships deck by deck. Sergeant Day Kim sat in the dropship with his squad of 20 Marines. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that looked designed to destroy buildings. He checked his equipment one last time, then looked at his squad. Remember the drill. Ravagers are tough but stupid. They'll rush you. Let them come. Kill zones. Overlapping fire. Don't waste ammunition. We clear the ship or we die trying. One of the younger Marines, a woman named Bach, looked nervous. Sarge, what if there are too many? Day grinned. Then we die tired. Move out. The dropship crashed through the hull of a Ravager hive ship. The Marines poured out, immediately facing a swarm of aliens. The Ravagers were nightmarish creatures, all teeth and claws and armored shells. They moved fast and attacked without fear. The humans didn't flinch. They formed a defensive line and opened fire. The weapons they carried weren't like anything the Velthara used. They were loud, brutal, and incredibly effective. Ravagers died by the dozens, but more kept coming. Grenades! Day shouted. The Marines threw small explosives into the swarm. The blast cleared the hallway in a wave of fire and shrapnel. They moved deeper into the ship, fighting every step. The Ravagers learned quickly that charging the humans resulted in death, so they tried ambushes. They dropped from the ceiling, burst through walls, attacked from behind. It didn't matter. The humans had fought each other for thousands of years. They knew every trick, every tactic. They set their own ambushes, used bait to draw the Ravagers into traps, and fought with a coordination that came from centuries of practice. Karel watched from the Soul's Pride as more dropships launched. Thousands of Marines boarding Ravager vessels. The battle reports came in constantly. Ships cleared, Ravagers killed, casualties taken but objectives achieved. Your people are dying down there, she said to Admiral Young. Yes, he agreed. That's what soldiers do. They die so others can live. On the surface of Velthera Prime, the main fleet began bombardment. They didn't use nuclear weapons or planet killers. The Velthera had asked them not to damage the world more than necessary, so the humans used precision strikes, targeting Ravager concentrations while avoiding civilian areas. But precision took time, and time cost lives. The Ravagers on the surface organized a counterattack, launching living projectiles into space, massive creatures that could survive in vacuum. They slammed into human ships, tearing at hulls with claws and teeth. The humans adapted. Fighters shifted from attacking hive ships to defending the fleet. Point defense weapons filled space with fire. Engineers worked desperately to repair damage while the battle raged around them. Dr. Yun Song worked in the medical bay, treating the wounded as they came in. Burns from energy weapons, cuts from Ravager claws, broken bones from explosive decompression. She worked without stopping, her hands steady even as the ship shook from impacts. A Marine was brought in, his arm torn off by a Ravager. He was conscious and in terrible pain. "Doc, am I going to die?" Yun looked him in the eyes. "Not today." "I won't let you." She saved his life, then moved to the next patient, and the next. The wounded kept coming. On the Ravager hive ship, Sergeant Day's squad had fought for 6 hours straight. They were exhausted, running low on ammunition, and down to 15 members. But they had cleared 3 decks and were close to the breeding chamber. "Once we destroy this, the whole ship dies," Day explained to his squad. "The Ravagers can't survive without the Queen producing food for them. We blow the chamber, we win. And if we can't," asked Bach, "then we blow ourselves up along with it. Either way, this ship doesn't leave orbit." They planted explosive charges around the breeding chamber, a massive room filled with eggs and young Ravagers. The sight was revolting, but the Marines focused on their work. They had a job to do. As they set the last charge, alarms blared. Ravagers poured into the room from every entrance, hundreds of them. The squad formed a circle, back to back, and opened fire. 30 seconds to detonation!" Day shouted. "Hold them!" The fight was desperate and brutal. The Marines killed dozens of Ravagers, but more kept coming. One by one, they fell. 10 Marines. 8. 5. 10 seconds! Day yelled. "Run if you can!" But there was nowhere to run. The Ravagers blocked every exit. The remaining Marines kept fighting, kept killing, until the charges detonated. The explosion tore through the hive ship, collapsing the breeding chamber and venting atmosphere into space. The ship began to die, its internal systems failing. Emergency escape pods launched, but they weren't from the Ravagers. They were from the Marines who had made it out just in time. Sergeant Day and 3 others survived. 12 had died in the chamber. The battle for Velthera Prime lasted 3 days. When it was over, all 15 Ravager hive ships were destroyed or captured. The swarms on the surface were scattered and being hunted down by human ground forces. The cost was heavy. 5,000 human soldiers dead, 20 ships destroyed, hundreds more wounded, but Velthera Prime was saved. 2 billion civilians were safe. Admiral Young called Kirel to the bridge. "Your capital is secure, Ambassador. We'll leave a defensive fleet here while the main force moves to your other worlds." Kirel looked at the casualty reports, her multiple eyes unable to focus through the emotion. 5,000 of your people died for ours." "Yes," Young said simply. "And we'll lose more before this is over. But that's the price of war. Someone always pays it." "I'm sorry," Kirel whispered. "I'm so sorry we brought this to you." "Don't be," Young said. "You gave us a purpose. You gave us a chance to be better than what we are. Some of us will die for it, but the ones who survive will know they died for something that mattered." Kirel watched as the human fleet regrouped and prepared to move to the next Ravager-occupied world. These humans were monsters, yes. But they were her monsters now. And the Ravagers were learning what it meant to face a species that had perfected the art of war. The war continued for 6 months, and with each battle, the Velthara learned more about the humans they had brought into their lives. The second battle took place at Velthara Colony 7, a mining world rich in resources. The Ravagers had only just arrived when the human fleet appeared. Admiral Young didn't wait or negotiate. He simply attacked. But this time, something different happened. The Ravagers didn't fight like before. They scattered, retreated, used the terrain to their advantage. They had learned from the first battle. So had the humans. Dr. Jin Park worked in his laboratory on the Soul's Pride, examining captured Ravager specimens. He had been studying them for weeks, learning everything about their biology. Now he had something to show Ambassador Kirel. "Look at this," Jin said, pointing at a screen showing Ravager cellular structure. "They reproduce through spores, very efficient, but there's a weakness. They're vulnerable to a specific frequency of radiation. It doesn't kill them immediately, but it makes them sick, weak, slow." Kirel felt sick looking at the screens. "You're developing a biological weapon. A very effective one," Jin agreed cheerfully. "We can deploy it from orbit, cover entire continents. The Ravagers won't die right away, but they won't be able to fight. Then we send in ground forces to finish them." That's horrible." Jin looked at her with genuine confusion. "Why?" "They're trying to kill your people. We're trying to stop them. This saves human lives and Velthara lives. What's horrible about that?" "You're talking about making them suffer." "I'm talking about winning," Jin corrected. "War isn't about fighting fair, Ambassador. It's about ending the fight as quickly as possible with minimum casualties on our side. If making them suffer achieves that, then yes, I'll make them suffer." Kirel left the laboratory feeling disturbed. She found Commander Hyun in the observation deck, watching Colony 7 through the viewport. "Your Dr. Jin developed a weapon," she said. "A terrible one." "I know," Hyun replied. "I approved it. Doesn't it bother you? The cruelty of it?" Hyun was quiet for a long time. "Every day, I wake up and I look at the casualty reports. 3,000 dead yesterday. Another 2,000 wounded. Half of those won't fight again. Some won't walk again. And every single one of them has a family back on Earth who will cry when they hear the news." He turned to face her. "So yes, Ambassador, cruelty bothers me. But you know what bothers me more? The idea that we're fighting fair and honorable while my soldiers die. The Ravagers don't care about honor, they just want to eat. So we'll use whatever works. We'll be as cruel as necessary, because the alternative is more dead humans, and I'm not willing to pay that price for the luxury of feeling morally superior." The weapon was deployed the next day. Orbital platforms released the radiation over Ravager-controlled territories. Within hours, the enemy forces became sluggish. Within a day, they could barely move. Human ground forces swept through and eliminated them with minimal casualties. It was efficient. It was effective. It was terrifying in its ruthlessness. But the psychological toll on the humans was starting to show. Dr. Yoon noticed it first in the medical bay. Soldiers came in with injuries, but more and more of them also had symptoms that didn't show on scans: nightmares, anxiety, inability to sleep. The weight of what they were doing was crushing them. She talked to Lieutenant Kwan, who had led a special operations mission deep into Ravager territory. He sat in her office, staring at nothing, his hands shaking slightly. "We captured a Ravager command node," he said quietly. "Studied it, learned their communication patterns. Then we hacked into their network and sent false orders. Told half their forces to attack the other half." "That's brilliant tactics," Ewan said. "They killed each other for 3 hours before they figured out the trick. We watched from orbit. Millions of them, tearing each other apart because we told them to." He looked at her with hollow eyes. "I'm good at my job, Doc, too good. And I hate what that says about me." Yoon had no easy answers. She could treat physical wounds, but these wounds went deeper. "You're saving lives, Lieutenant. Velthara lives. Human lives. By being a monster," Quan said. "By being exactly what we've always been. Killers who are just better at finding reasons to kill." That night, Yoon reported her concerns to Admiral Young. The fleet was winning, but the soldiers were breaking. They needed rest, rotation, psychological support. Young listened carefully, then made a decision that surprised everyone. He ordered the fleet to pull back for 2 weeks. They would establish defensive positions around liberated Velthara worlds, but launch no new offensives. "The war can wait," he announced. "Our people can't." The humans used the time to rest, to grieve, to process what they had done and what they would have to do. Memorial services were held for the fallen. Counselors worked with soldiers struggling with the weight of war. The fleet's chaplains, representing every Earth religion, offered comfort however they could. Kirel attended one of the memorial services. Captain Tay spoke, honoring a pilot who had died saving his wingmate. She was 23 years old. She liked painting and terrible music. She wanted to be a teacher after her service. She'll never get that chance because she used her fighter as a shield to protect someone else. The room was full of soldiers, all standing in silence. Many cried openly, unashamed. Kirel realized something she hadn't understood before. These humans weren't emotionless killers. They felt everything, every death, every choice, every act of violence. They just chose to do it anyway. Later, she found Commander Hyun alone in his quarters. He was writing letters, she realized. Letters to the families of dead soldiers. "Do you write one for every casualty?" she asked. "Everyone," Hyun confirmed. "It's the least I can do. I sent them to war. I owe them this." "How many have you written?" 8,412, he said without hesitation. "I remember every name." Kirel sat down across from him. "Can I ask you something? Why do you keep fighting? You could stop. Go home. Let us face the Ravagers alone." Hyun put down his pen and looked at her. "You know what the worst thing about being human is, Ambassador? We know what we are. We know we're violent and cruel and dangerous. We know we've done terrible things to each other for terrible reasons. And we can't change that. It's in our DNA, in our history, in our culture." He gestured out the viewport at the stars. "But when you came to us, you gave us something we've never had. A chance to use that violence for something good. To protect instead of destroy. To save instead of kill. We can't stop being monsters, but we can choose what kind of monsters we are. Even if it destroys you? Even if it breaks your soldiers? Especially then," Hyun said firmly. "Because the alternative is going back to Earth and wondering if we could have done more. If we could have saved more Velthara lives. That guilt would destroy us faster than any battle." The 2 weeks of rest ended, and the fleet prepared to resume the offensive. But there was a change in the human forces. They were quieter, grimmer, more determined. They had looked at what they were becoming and chosen to accept it. Admiral Young gathered his commanders for a final briefing before the next assault. "We're going after the Ravager home cluster. 3 worlds, all breeding grounds. Intelligence says it's where they originated. We destroy that. We end this war." "And if we fail?" someone asked. "We won't," Young said simply. "Because failure means the Velthara die, and we've already paid too high a price to allow that." Dr. Yuna approached Kirel before the fleet departed. "You should know something, Ambassador. After this war ends, assuming we survive, humanity will never be the same. We'll have shown the galaxy what we are. Every species that hears about this will know we're dangerous." "I know," Kirel said quietly. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. We were always dangerous. At least now we're dangerous in a way that matters. At least now when people fear us, it'll be because we protected the weak instead of just killing each other." The fleet moved out, heading for the Ravager home cluster. The final battle was coming. The humans had become exactly what Kirel feared when she first met them: efficient, ruthless, unstoppable killers. But they had also become her people's only hope. And somewhere in that contradiction lay the truth about humanity. They were monsters, yes, but they were monsters who had chosen to care. And that made all the difference. The Ravager home cluster appeared on the screens like a vision of hell. 3 worlds orbiting a dying red star, all of them covered in hive structures. Billions of Ravagers lived here, breeding, preparing for their next wave of conquest across the galaxy. And now the human fleet had arrived to end them. Admiral Young stood on the bridge of Soul's Pride, studying the tactical displays. Every analysis said this was suicide. The Ravagers had concentrated their entire remaining force here: 3 billion creatures, thousands of hive ships, and defensive structures that could destroy entire fleets. Human intelligence estimated 70% casualties minimum, maybe more, maybe all of them. "All hands," Young said into the ship-wide communication system, his voice calm and steady. "This is it, the final battle. Everything we've done, everyone we've lost, it all leads here. You all know the odds. You all know what we're facing. I won't lie to you and say this will be easy. Many of you won't see Earth again." He paused, letting that sink in. "But here's what I will say. The Velthara came to us dying and desperate. They had nowhere else to go, and we chose to help them. Not because we had to. Not because we got anything out of it. We chose it because it was right. Because for once in our bloody history, we could use our strength to protect instead of destroy." His voice grew stronger. "So yes, we're going to die today. Some of us. Maybe most of us. But the Ravagers will learn that humanity doesn't quit. We don't surrender. And when you threaten innocent people, we will cross the galaxy itself to stop you. All ships, attack formation. Let's finish this." The fleet moved forward as one, 200 ships against an empire of monsters. Captain Tay led the fighter wings, 3,000 pilots who knew most of them wouldn't survive the next few hours. His squadron dove toward the nearest hive ship, weapons blazing. The Ravagers had learned from previous battles, and their defenses were better, more coordinated. Tay watched 3 of his wingmates die in the first minute. "All wings, break and scatter. Individual attack runs. Don't give them mass targets." The fighters spread out, each pilot becoming their own small war. They dodged, weaved, fired, and died. But for every human fighter that fell, they took out Ravager positions, cleared paths for the larger ships, created chaos in the enemy formations. Tay's fighter took a hit, lost its left engine. His controls were sluggish, his ship dying. He could eject, try to survive, or he could do something that mattered. He aimed his crippled fighter at the central command nexus of the largest hive ship. "All wings, this is Captain Tay. It's been an honor flying with you. See you on the other side?" He activated his fighter's self-destruct and accelerated to maximum speed. The impact and explosion destroyed the command nexus, but Tay didn't live to see it. His sacrifice created a gap in the Ravager defenses that the main fleet immediately exploited. On the ground, Sergeant Day led the assault on the largest breeding world. 50,000 Marines dropped from orbit, hitting the surface in waves. The fighting was immediate and brutal. Ravagers swarmed from every direction, defending their home with desperate fury. Day's squad had been together for the entire war. They had fought on 6 worlds, lost half their original members, and gained new ones. They were exhausted, traumatized, and running on pure determination. "Push forward!" Day shouted over the sound of weapons fire. "Breeding chambers are 3 kilometers ahead. We stop them from making more. We win." Private Solhan fought beside him, her armor scorched and damaged. She had been a teacher before the war, had volunteered because her students asked her what she would do if monsters were real. Now she knew. You fought them. The Marines advanced meter by meter, fighting through swarms of Ravagers. They used every tactic they had learned, every weapon they had developed. Explosives cleared paths, flamethrowers created kill zones, precision fire took out Ravager commanders. But the cost was terrible. Marines fell by the dozens, then by the hundreds. Still they advanced, because turning back meant all those deaths meant nothing. Day's squad reached the breeding chamber, a massive underground complex that stretched for kilometers. They planted nuclear charges at the support columns. Once detonated, the entire structure would collapse. 5 minutes to detonation, Day announced. Anyone who can run, run now. But as they turned to leave, Ravagers poured in from every entrance, thousands of them, protecting their young. The squad formed a defensive position and opened fire, but there were too many. Sol took a hit that tore through her armor. She fell, badly wounded. Day grabbed her, tried to drag her toward the exit. "I've got you. Stay with me." "No time, Sarge," she coughed, blood on her lips. "Get out. Let me hold them." "I'm not leaving you." Sul pushed him away with the last of her strength. "Someone has to make sure these charges go off. Someone has to witness. Tell them we won." Day ran, tears streaming down his face. As Sul and 3 other Marines held the line, the charges detonated exactly on schedule. The breeding chamber collapsed, taking 1 billion unborn Ravagers with it, and 4 humans who chose to stay behind. In orbit, the main battle raged for 12 hours. Human ships fought with everything they had, but the Ravagers had numbers on their side. One by one, human vessels were destroyed or crippled. Dr. Yoon worked in the medical bay as the Soul's Pride took hit after hit. Wounded came in faster than she could treat them. The ship shook from impacts. Alarms blared. Hull breaches vented atmosphere. An explosion tore through the medical bay, killing half her staff and destroying equipment. Yoon kept working, treating patients with whatever she had left, even as the ship died around her. "Doc, we need to evacuate," someone shouted. "Not until every wounded soldier is off this ship," she shouted back. "Keep loading the escape pods." She stayed until the last patient was evacuated, then was forcibly dragged to an escape pod by a Marine. The Soul's Pride exploded minutes later, taking the Ravager flagship with it in a final act of defiance. Admiral Young died on the bridge, coordinating the fleet's movements until the very end. His last order was simple. "All remaining ships, full assault, end this." The surviving human fleet, now less than 60 ships, launched a final desperate attack. They used every weapon, every tactic, every ounce of strength they had left. And slowly, incredibly, the Ravagers began to break. Without their breeding grounds, without their command structure, without the certainty of endless numbers, the Ravagers panicked. They tried to flee, but the humans pursued them, hunting down every hive ship, every transport, every last remnant. The battle ended not with a bang, but with silence. The last Ravager ship was destroyed. The last ground forces were eliminated. The threat that had nearly destroyed the Velthara Empire was finally completely gone. But the cost was staggering. 30,000 human soldiers dead. 50 ships destroyed. Thousands more wounded, many permanently. Entire families back on Earth would grieve for generations. 3 months later, Earth held memorial services in every city, every town, every place that had sent soldiers to war. The Velthara delegation attended the main ceremony in Seoul, where Commander Hyun stood before millions and read the names of the fallen. All 30,000 of them. It took 6 hours. When he finished, Ambassador Corell approached the podium. She had learned to speak Korean, had studied human culture, had tried to understand these strange, violent, compassionate creatures. "People of Earth," she began, her voice amplified across the city. "We came to you as strangers, dying and desperate. We came seeking shelter from monsters. Instead, we found monsters of a different kind, monsters who chose to stand between us and extinction. monsters who crossed the galaxy to protect people they had never met. She looked at the memorial wall, covered with names. Your people died for mine. Thousands of them. They didn't have to. They chose to. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to understand that choice, trying to be worthy of that sacrifice. Her multiple eyes glistened with tears. In every Velthara dialect, we have created a new word. It translates to hope-bringer, but the word we use is simply human, because that is what you are to us now, forever. You are hope, you are salvation, you are proof that monsters can choose to be heroes. The ceremony ended in silence. No cheers, no celebration, just quiet acknowledgement of what had been lost and what had been saved. Later, Xerel found Commander Hyun sitting alone by the memorial wall, his hand resting on a name, Captain Tae-won. He was a friend, Hyun said quietly. They all were, Xerel replied, gesturing at the thousands of names. They sat together in silence, human and alien, sharing grief. Finally, Hyun spoke. Was it worth it? All those lives, all that death? Did we do the right thing? Xerel thought about her people, alive and rebuilding, about the children who would grow up free from fear, about the worlds that would never be consumed. Yes, she said firmly, it was worth it. Not to you, perhaps. The price you paid was too high. But to us, you saved everything. 5 years later, a new alien species called the Torvon made first contact with Earth. Their opening message was simple and respectful. We have heard the stories of the Ravager War. We come in peace, seeking friendship with the warriors who protect, not conquer. The message spread through human space, and people reacted with mixed feelings. Pride at being respected, shame at being feared, uncertainty about what they had become. Dr. Yuna, now Earth's ambassador to the Velthara, watched the Torvan delegation arrive with Xerel beside her. They're afraid of us, Yuna observed. They're cautious, Xerel corrected. There's a difference. They know what you're capable of, but they also know what you choose to do with that capability. That's why they're here. We're still monsters, Yuna said quietly. Yes, Xerel agreed. But you're our monsters, and that makes you family. The galaxy had changed. Every species now knew about Earth, about humans, about what happened when peaceful people were threatened. Some feared humanity. Some respected them. Some, like the Velthara, loved them despite understanding exactly what they were. And on Earth, in a cemetery in Seoul, fresh flowers appeared every day on 30,000 graves, placed there by people who would never forget that monsters came from the stars seeking salvation, and Earth's monsters answered with blood, fire, and sacrifice. The price was paid. The debt could never be repaid. But the choice, the terrible, beautiful choice to fight for others, defined humanity in ways that 10,000 years of fighting each other never could. They were monsters. They were heroes. They were human. And the galaxy would never be the same.